Hey, this week I wanted to remind you of a basic productivity principle. It's one of those things that has stood the test of time. And even though you've heard it before and you know it, there's a big difference between knowing something and fully putting it into practice so that you can build your productivity on the foundation of stuff that actually works. There's this temptation for us to always think it's the newest book that was just released that's got the secret for our success, when in reality, most of that stuff will fade away and not stand the test of time. It's the old stuff that was created 50 years ago that people are still using and finding that, man, if you can figure out how to apply this, you can have tremendous results in your life and in your business. So this is one of those, and it's chunking down. It's that idea of taking something big and breaking it down into smaller pieces. But here's the extra part that I want to add to your understanding of why this is so powerful. So it came from a question. One of my clients sent me a question about, hey, I'm trying to work with one of my copywriters. This is a person that struggles with a little bit of ADHD. And so they feel overwhelmed when they have this huge, long list of things that they're supposed to edit and work through on a very long script, basically. And so what can we do in order to break that down so they don't feel overwhelmed by it? Because what we noticed is if we send smaller chunks of that script, they start to get better. They find that they can actually work faster, bring a higher level of creativity, and feel less overwhelmed by it. Well, that's basic common sense, right? Especially if you have that neurological tendency toward the ADHD side of that spectrum. We're all somewhere on the continuum from, very relative to the average person, which ADHD, just so you know, like this is one of those things where it's not like a genetic thing that you either have or you don't have. Like, for example, there are some genetic things that will actually, it's like a switch. It's either on or it's off. You either have that disorder or you don't. ADHD is not like that. It's a continuum that we're all on, and we only call it a disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as recognized by the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. That coding book essentially is just capturing, in some cases, that a person is at the far extreme, where we say, for this person, they're so far on that continuum that it really does get in the way, in a way that's not just, it's just annoying, like it's hard to do boring work. That's true for all humans, right? If you give any person a long list of things that's just continuous and there's very little feedback or sense of accomplishment, it's going to be difficult. But for some people, that's even more important. So if you recognize that in yourself, or if you don't, either way, chunking down is one way to take a big goal and to increase the dopamine that naturally rises at a neurochemical level to make you more interested, fascinated with the task that's right in front of you. So if we can increase the dopamine that's flowing in your mind as you engage with a task, you're going to have an easier time accomplishing that task because you just naturally feel more interested. It's essentially, dopamine is a focusing agent. It helps your brain to see, this is relevant to my goals, my survival goals, or the things that will bring me pleasure or help me escape from harm. And so what dopamine does, a lot of the misunderstanding about dopamine came from early scientific efforts to understand how that neurochemical works, specifically in the areas of our brain that have to do with the reward circuitry. And it was proposed to be essentially like the pleasure that we experience when we accomplish something. But what we found in more recent decades, research on this topic, is that dopamine is really the driver that causes us to want to go after. It's more of a craving neurotransmitter than it is a reward transmitter. It is involved in both, and I won't go into all the complexity about how that works. But what you need to know is that if we put a grape right outside of a monkey's grasp and we're measuring the dopamine release in that monkey's brain, his dopamine becomes very high because that grape is just there, and he knows that if he can just get to it, if they bring it a little bit closer, the dopamine increases because now he believes that it's just within his reach. And so it's an activation. It activates him to go after a goal. As soon as he puts that grape in his mouth and crunches down and starts to experience the actual pleasure of eating the grape, the dopamine drops off very quickly because it's not about the reward, it's about the drive to go after something. And so one of the things that this means for us humans when we're trying to accomplish goals, that we want to take goals that are far out in the future, that take a long time, that where the reward is delayed. And we want to break it down so that we feel like we get that sense of, if I can just focus for another 17 minutes, then I'm going to get the reward of having accomplished this chunk and the feeling of accomplishment. So that feeling of accomplishment is something that we want to go after more. And if the dopamine is there, in other words, if it feels like it's within our reach, if it feels close. So that's one of the reasons why all of the clients that I work with, they go through a course that I give them once they become my private client. And in that course, one of the things we talk about is the idea of bringing the finish line closer. So if you're running and you know the finish line is sort of this eventual thing that you will reach at some point, it's not going to release as much dopamine and drive and motivation as if you say, let's chunk that down. Let's bring the finish line closer and say, yes, that long-term goal is important, but we also have this midterm goal. And to achieve that midterm goal, we have this short-term goal. And in order to accomplish the short-term goal, I just need to finish this 20-minute chunk of work. And that's why I actually like to see people use timers. Here's one that I use that has a 1-minute timer. If I need to check my email and I didn't already pause my email inbox, I might use something like this where I just turn it. It's got different numbers on different sides. And I know, okay, there's a chance I'll get distracted. So I'm just gonna give myself 3 minutes. I turn it towards the 3 minutes and the countdown timer starts. And so I will use something like this to motivate myself. Like, okay, I have 3 minutes. I think I can accomplish the goal. I think I can be in and out of my email inbox on this task before that 3 minutes goes off. And so by using a timer like that, I've shrunk the time available, and I've increased this feeling of, it's a challenge. Can I accomplish the goal? I bet I can get that feeling of accomplishment. And that works even better if it's a mundane task. If it's something that's going to take me 12 hours and I just want to get through 2 hours of it today, I might say, all right, 20-minute chunk. I'm going to see if I can accomplish that. And then I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I might go do some stretching, go take a look stand out in the sunshine for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and I'll do another 20 minutes. By chunking it down like that, what we're doing is we're increasing the natural dopamine. In other words, we're working with our neurobiology so that it supports our goal of accomplishing more in less time. So your challenge this week, see if there's one thing that you have on your plate that seems kind of big and onerous, a difficult task that's going to require a lot of your time and energy. See if you can chunk down into smaller pieces. It's worth the 2 minutes it takes to take something that's big and break it down into smaller pieces. In fact, David Allen, who's by many considered to be kind of the father of the self-help movement when it comes to organization and to-do lists and that aspect of productivity, he would say there's this action principle where you don't want to just say, okay, my next task list is to get the oil changed in my car, but in fact, you want to break it down to the very next action, which might be call the car maintenance shop to make an appointment. So that's like an action. And so it's more likely to give us this dopamine, that natural, when we see that on our list, we're much more likely to have this, oh yeah, I can accomplish that. And so the dopamine arises to help us to achieve that goal, something we want. And so it's easier to accomplish a task list that's broken down to that minute, fine-grained level than it is to have something like get the car repaired or get the oil changed. So take something that seems like, well, I already broke it down, and see if you can break it down even smaller and then watch the effect. Talk to you soon.